Alright, it's time for another video. And today, I wrote down better governance, whoa, right to privacy, or privacy, you know, right to exist, I don't know how that got there, right to have a small space of one's own. Virginia Woolf. I actually read this book to become more woke, feminism. The book A Room of One's Own. I didn't understand shit. So I read the Wikipedia article and then hey, I actually agree with the idea that people should have a space to feel safe, gather mental thoughts. And I was just thinking about this now, connecting everything to biology, because first is the question of why, And I was thinking, well, obviously reflecting, why do we need to reflect? Why can't we do it in a public space? And it's, well, in a social setting or something, imagine the tribe around the campfire. Your brain's still running social scripts, you're still analyzing the room so you don't feel safe. So I think, or even in the savannah, you gotta be watching out for threats. Like a lion. But if you had a nice calm, beach with the sun, ding ding ding, and then the seagulls, the waves, and you're just chilling out here on a beach chair. I think if your brain feels safe, then it can start, turning down other mental circuits and, you know, focusing on some other stuff that might not be improvements in the present, but help you for the future. So it's oh, you know, it's safe. Now I can do some long-term planning. And so that's, I think, one reason. I mean, this is all relating back to privacy. I don't know what I meant by these words. This makes no sense to me, but maybe it will. And then I was thinking, what's another reason why we would want privacy? Well, privacy is also good for deception. That's what, that's why governments don't like privacy. Because it's people can have their secret meetings and oh, we're doing our evil stuff. We're plotting. And then the government's no, we don't want plotting. Plotting bad. Or just even kids, I don't know why you want the room shut, but maybe it's because you're doing evil things. I don't know. But I know it's good for deception, reflection. I think that's it. I mean, really this came about because I was watching these people in their boat. And their boat's just one big room and then a bunch of narrow hallways and places that aren't really nice to hang out on. And it's like if you're on a boat with just one room, then there's no space or separation. You know, wouldn't they get cabin fever? Like, I think it's nice to have some acoustic and visual separation, you know, so that your brain can turn off those circuits to reflect. But why is it important to reflect? I guess, like I said, make better future, you know. But why does it feel like relaxing to reflect? I guess maybe it's not relaxing, but more a statement on the situation. It's, you know, probably here your CPU is running 100%. Here it's like, oh, we can turn it down a little, maybe. Relax. Relax and reflect. R&R, rest and relaxation. And reflection. 3 R's. But I don't know. I mean, maybe I was thinking of this in the context of, you know, John Locke was like all about right to property. Not poverty, property. You know, what is it? Natural law. I forget what the exact term he used. Social contract. Oh, now I kind of remember what I was thinking about. Yeah, the social contract is like a right to property. But, I mean, why do people like property? Is it because we're all just dogs and we like to have our territory to pee in? Maybe that's some part of it. I was also thinking it was connected to privacy. What does this say? Oh yeah, room of one's own. Right to exist. I guess, yeah, that's another thing about property. Is this idea of like self-sufficiency. Self-determination. You know, pretty much your house is like one of the few places you have a lot of individualistic control in. I mean, and I think this goes back to the idea of governance, you know, which is it should be a collection of shared values. So the people make the direction, and then government is the movement of the shared values. through objective reality. This is related to subjective reality. And one of the difficulties in this regard is that not everyone is 100% in accordance. And so it's like, you know, I would say everyone matters. And everyone's ideas matter. But you need some sort of compromise to get to the point of movement, you know? And so, ooh, translation right here. So, you know, it's like, well, this person believes everyone should eat cabbage, and this person believes everyone should eat potatoes. And so, it's the government's job to, you know, find how to navigate that. Sometimes it'll be like, you know, everyone wants potatoes, everyone wants cabbages, but you know what? Maybe everyone should eat cucumbers because that's the best for both of them. Or maybe it's like, well, maybe everyone should eat potatoes because there's more potatoes. Everyone wants cabbages, but they actually love, you know, or everyone loves potatoes, but everyone loves living more than just in the moment stuff. So we're going to make the decision for people that everyone eats cabbages because it's more healthy. And so, you know, it's a tricky business because you're not making everyone happy. And so it's like, what was the best choice here? Well, depends on who you ask. But we should want, what we should desire is that it makes it better. You know, what objective heuristics exist for good governance? Well, we would say whatever makes it the best for the subjective experience for the people who fall under this category. But I mean, this is just a giant can of worms because he can be like better for people in the now or for the future. You know, because there might be more people here, but there's a lot of people in the now too, you know, and they're in here now. But also, it's not just this, but it's like, what about other countries and other places? You know, if they try and force values, what happens? And I think, I guess you would say the devil's in the details. But I would say it's important to know fundamentals. To know what question we're answering. And I think it goes back to the expression balance and all things, which is an interesting expression for how wide a net it casts. That's a pivot. I don't think I have any more ideas in this regard. Um, yeah, I mean, you just gotta compromise, and everyone's gonna have their own opinion, and you just really have to see the shared values. I think that's something that gets lost nowadays, is people don't really know what their values are. It's like in dating apps, when people think values are hobbies. I find that funny. It's like, I like hiking. And then it's like, oh, you like hiking too. That means we're good for each other. But as people have experienced recently, it's like, oh no, that's actually not really a good way of measuring compatibility. Because, and this is getting on a tangent, but I don't fucking care. This is my video. Um, you know, I don't get why people say they like certain things. If it's just a casual thing, that's not really information. Saying you like hiking or saying like you like music, that's not really a good indicator of anything. It's like you're just saying you're fucking human. Oh, I like breathing. Oh, wow, I also like breathing. It's like, yes, everyone's gonna like hiking, everyone's gonna like nature. There's something fundamentally human about why these activities are enjoyable. You know, that's not really anything. I mean, some people are gonna like it more than others, and that's where you can draw the differences, but this is what makes it a problem, is these superficial tags without any like indication of, more information. It's like, is it just like once every year, or is it once every day? And then you can go even deeper than that. But I think people, like, there's nothing, you know, this is just very surface level. And a lot of it is just like humans like doing it. No one's gonna put like, oh, I like shredding my balls against a trees grater. Like, no one does that because it's not an activity that people enjoy. The reason why people do these things like hiking or horror movies or photography, why they even exist as hobbies that people identify, is because there's something fundamentally enjoyable that the humans like. That the humans like. Man, I'm talking about it in third person. What the fuck? No, it's just like everyone's gonna like it. It's like a Gaussian distribution. You just gotta find out where you are on the curve. Saying you're on the curve is not really indicative of any information. Everyone's on the curve. I guess some would say, oh, you're signaling that you're somewhere strongly more here on the curve. And I guess that's true, but everyone answers the question different. I don't know. But anyways, going back to values. I feel like a lot of values are surface level now, and people are exploiting them to be very high level. You know, algorithms are saying that surface level things are high level. And you go outside, and you're like, wait a second, wait a second, wait a second. People actually don't care. I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to trigger someone's emotional identity crisis or, get myself fired. But you go outside and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. People would rather just have a safe and, well, that might be controversial because people are like, everything gets so manipulated in politics. I guess I can't say what people value without starting something because people claim values as their own and stamp it, say like we're fighting for this value. And then the other side saying we're fighting for the same value, just using different words. And then they're arguing that one side has a value and the other side doesn't, but they're really sharing the same value. So it's like, why are we arguing? You're arguing the semantics. I don't know. It is kind of funny though. I thought that was so weird. I had a moment where I was like, this was after the government shutdown or something. And I hear some of my coworkers like moral argument. And I'm like, wait a second. I'm on the opposite side of the political spectrum. But I was hearing the same moral argument for the past month too. They said my side had it and they didn't. Now these guys are saying they have it and we don't. It's like, what the fuck is going on here? So people are arguing for the same morals, just they're using the same arguments against each other. I don't understand that. This gets very emotional because it's tied to identity. It's like I am this person, and so people view arguments as an attack on identity versus logical arguments. So I'm not really into arguing that someone's identity is not valid. If someone has a belief, so I'm not going to argue it. It's like, that's fine. I mean, I'm willing to argue logical arguments if you can detach identity to it. But if it's emotional, I'm not touching it because I'm not really in the business of like, trying to say you don't matter because you do. I just don't know how things got set up to be that way, but that's not my business. That's above my pay grade. That exists on the societal level. And that goes back to this idea, actually. Society, like you can control your house, but you can't control society. And I think I think it makes sense to say people should have a right to write their own stories, self-determination in the world versus just being like on a conveyor belt and being like, this is what you should experience. Welcome to life. This is booth 1. This is booth 2. This is school. This is high school. This is college. Every experience is curated. And then you're just on this conveyor belt. And you get fucking dumped in the trash, and that's death. I think people would agree that's pretty lame, you know? I think people would want this like open free range, you know? Everyone's obsessed with freedom. You can run and gather. The problem is this is like if someone has dangers, like everyone's gonna have their own ideas and self-determination, you know, like so one person like I want to be the king and so I get to rule over you. And this kind of lowers it for this guy, self-determination. So, you know, how do you balance? Or even if someone's ideas are dangerous, like, I want to set fire to this, blah, 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 you know? And it's like, well, he shouldn't be able to do that just because he wants self-determination. So, I think the compromise that people came up with is like, alright, it doesn't make a sense for everyone to have self-determination to the extreme. You go to the statement, balance in all things. It's like, but people should have a little box that they can call their own and that they can create. Like everyone should have space where they can curate what they want. Now, is that space tied to physical space? Ooh, that's an interesting question. You know, that's where the freedom of ideas comes from. Freedom of expression. Hmm, this is interesting. Oh, I think like property, like physical space, you need to have some balance in terms of what's allowed. I think most people agree that um, self-determination that puts other people's health at risk is not really that okay. I think that's a fundamental law, you know? If you can program that thing into a robot, that'd be good, you know? You can have self-determination, but don't 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 put people's lives at risk. That's something that all our governments have tried to iron out. It's like that's the line that no one should cross. And anyways, going back to this, because this was kind of interesting, balance in all things. Why does that work out so much to describe, you know, how we should move forward? To me, it's kind of analogous to, you know, a Gaussian distribution or something. It just seems so natural that, like, everything would follow a certain pattern, you know? It's like, why does balance in all things work out so much as a mantra? Like, when you're weighing two things, two actions, why is usually the most correct? I guess I'm running out of battery. And that's fine, because this video's gone long enough, and it's switching topics anyways. So, it's fine to end it here. Oh, here's the original question. Yeah, I think it's just the balance between self-determination and affecting others' self-determination. And we're trying to balance both. And the balance is tricky. But the goals of government should always be to maximize self-determination for the collective. Are people good at choosing what they want? I don't know, or what's good for them. I don't know if they choose cabbages or potatoes. Who knows? But people should be able to write their own stories. And, to me, this doesn't really have a lot of caveats. I think this is just a statement that's true. Which, I don't really run into a lot of those statements that are just true. That's pretty interesting. We'll put a question mark next to that. That's weird. I don't really know a lot of caveats. I know like there's some trickiness in getting to this state because you have to balance the individual versus society. But I think as a whole, there's not a lot of. I don't think self-determination would be that bad. I mean, I was actually having this idea, well, am I even still, that there's no good or bad decisions. Well, actually, there are. Good or bad is only on a scale of are you consciously making the decision. I think that's what would separate a good or bad idea. Because if you consciously put your balls on a cheese grater, is that a bad idea? If you chose that? I don't think so. Versus like you unconsciously ended up in a good life. That's lame. That's boring. It's like those Americans who have that nice house, but they don't really know how the nice house, nice family, nice car or whatever, but they don't really know how they ended up here. That's NPC behavior. That's sad. Versus someone who's like, man, I'm gonna shred my balls on a cheese grater. That's a choice, and I think that's a good decision if it was a choice. Obviously, it's not gonna feel great, but that's just my feeling. Obviously, everyone's gonna have their own opinions. Oh, we'll end it there.